Ghosts of the Mayan temples, spirits that still haunt the jungle, fade in dense jungle canopy at dusk. Then the sound of something screaming that is definitely not human. The year is 2023, and deep in the Guatemalan rainforest, an expedition team stands frozen at the base of a temple that should not exist. Not in any official records, not on any map. Just stone and shadow rising from vegetation like a sleeping god waiting to wake. Dr. Sarah Chen adjusts her camera with trembling hands. She has been an archaeologist for 15 years, has explored dozens of Mayan sites across Central America, but this temple is different. Wrong. The carvings are backwards. The doorways face directions that violate every known principle of Mayan sacred architecture, and the air around it feels thick, heavy, like breathing through wet cloth. Her guide Miguel refuses to approach closer. He is Maya, born in these highlands, raised on stories his grandmother told about places the jungle hides for good reason. He stands 20 meters back and will go no further. His hands shake as he lights a cigarette. When Sarah asks why he is afraid, he does not answer, just points to the temple entrance and says one word: Xibalba. The Mayan underworld, the place of fear and death and gods who hunger. Sarah's equipment begins malfunctioning. Her compass spins wildly. Her GPS shows their location as the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Her radio produces only static, layered with sounds that might be voices speaking backwards. She checks her watch. It reads 6:47 p.m. The sun set 3 hours ago, but her watch insists it is still evening. She taps it. The second hand moves counterclockwise. Temperature drops suddenly, 20 degrees in 30 seconds. Sarah's breath becomes visible in air that was sweltering moments before. The jungle sounds stop. Every bird, every insect, every creature for a kilometer in all directions falls absolutely silent. The only sound is wind through leaves and something else. Drumming, rhythmic, coming from inside the temple, from deep inside where no one has walked for 1,000 years. Miguel drops his cigarette and runs, just turns and sprints into jungle without looking back. Sarah calls after him, but he does not slow. She is alone now. Her and the temple and the drumming that grows louder with each beat. She should follow Miguel, should leave this place and never return, but she does not, cannot, because there is something pulling her forward, not physically, deeper than that. A compulsion rising from a place in her mind she does not recognize as her own. She raises her camera, begins filming. Her footage will be found 3 weeks later on a memory card discovered 40 kilometers from this location. The camera itself never recovered. What the footage shows will make 2 researchers quit the field entirely, will cause the Guatemalan government to seal the entire region, will be classified and locked away where only the desperate or the damned will ever see it again. Sarah walks toward the entrance. Her boots crunch on ground that should be soft earth, but feels like walking on bones. The temple doorway is a mouth. That is the only way to describe it. Carved to look like a great serpent's jaws opened wide, teeth of stone jutting down from the top. A throat of darkness leading down into earth, down into places the Maya believed you could descend to the land of death and torment. She steps inside. The temperature drops again. Her camera's battery indicator flashes red, though it was fully charged 10 minutes ago. The drumming is louder here, not echoing, direct, as if the drummers are just around the corner, just out of sight. Waiting. The walls are covered in glyphs. Sarah studied Mayan, writing for her doctorate, can read most classical forms fluently, but these glyphs are wrong. Inverted, written in a style she has never seen. She focuses her camera on one section, zooms in. The symbols seem to shift when viewed through the lens, rearranging themselves. She lowers the camera and looks with her naked eyes. The symbols are different. She raises the camera again. Different still. Each time she looks, the message changes. She photographs a sequence anyway. We'll analyze it later. Much later, when she is somewhere with electric lights and locked doors and other people nearby, to remind her that reality is solid and fixed and rational. The translation she will eventually produce will make no sense. The glyphs will say, turn back, then leave this place, then we are waiting for you, Sarah. Her name, in glyphs carved 1200 years before she was born. But she does not know that yet. Right now, she only knows the drumming has stopped. Total silence, worse than silence. The absence of sound so complete, it makes her ears ring. She calls out, her voice swallowed by darkness. No echo, no reverberation, just her words disappearing into nothing. Then the answer comes. Not from ahead, from behind. A voice speaking Spanish, with an accent she cannot place. It says, do not turn around, Sarah. If you turn around, you will see us. And if you see us, you cannot leave. She freezes, her camera still recording, her breath coming fast and shallow. She did not tell Miguel her name, did not introduce herself, and there is no one else in this jungle, no one else for 50 kilometers. So who is speaking? What is speaking? And how does it know her name? The voice speaks again. We have been waiting so long, so very long. The priests promised we would sleep until the world ended, but we did not sleep, could not sleep. We have been awake in the darkness for 1,000 years, aware, suffering, and now you have come, you have found us, you have opened the way. Sarah's training screams at her to run. Her instincts beg her to flee, but her body will not obey. She is locked in place, frozen, and slowly against every impulse, against every fragment of self-preservation, she begins to turn, to look behind her, to see what stands in the temple entrance, what followed her inside, what has been waiting in this place since the Maya abandoned their cities and let the jungle swallow them whole. Her camera captures it. 3 frames, 3 images before the battery dies completely. The first frame shows the entrance, empty, nothing there. The second frame shows a figure, tall, impossibly thin, wearing ceremonial garb that should have rotted away centuries ago, face obscured by a jade mask carved to look like a jaguar devouring the sun. The third frame shows the figure closer, much closer, close enough to touch. The mask fills the screen, and through the eye holes, something looks back, not eyes. Darkness, absolute. The kind of darkness that should not exist in the physical world. The camera dies. Everything dies. Sarah's flashlight, her watch, the GPS, all electronics failing simultaneously. She is in absolute darkness, with something that breathes, but should not breathe, that moves, but should not move, that knows her name, and has been waiting for her specifically for longer than her civilization has existed. She screams. The sound of her scream echoes, not from stone walls, but from something else, as if her voice is being repeated back by a dozen throats, 100, all screaming in unison, all perfectly synchronized, creating a chorus of terror that builds and builds until it does not sound human anymore, does not sound like anything that ever lived. Then silence, then the sound of footsteps running, fast, panicked, crashing through jungle, breaking branches, gasping, crying. The sounds move away from the temple, grow distant, fade. Miguel finds her 4 hours later. She is 3 kilometers from the temple, curled in fetal position beneath a saber tree, eyes open, staring, not blinking. He has to carry her back to the village. She does not speak for 6 days. When she finally does, the first thing she says is they are awake now. I woke them, and they are so hungry. The expedition is cancelled. The location classified. The Guatemalan Institute of Anthropology and History issues a statement. Dangerous terrain. Unstable structures. No archaeological value. The area is declared off limits. Armed guards posted on the single access road. Local villages are paid generous sums to report any foreigners asking about ruins, to discourage questions, to keep the secret. But secrets have a way of spreading. Stories leak. Footage appears online. Blurry images analyzed by people who have never walked through jungle, who have never felt the weight of something ancient and hungry pressing against the membrane of reality, who think they know better, who think they are immune, who make plans to find that temple, to see for themselves, to prove it is all mythology and mass hysteria, and perfectly explainable. Some of them succeed, some find the temple, and some of those never come back. The jungle keeps them, or something in the jungle keeps them. Local Maya refuse to search for them, refuse to even speak of them, just shake their heads and whisper the old warnings, the warnings their grandparents learned from their grandparents in an unbroken chain, stretching back to the time when the temples were new and the gods still walked. Do not go to the silent places. Do not enter the stone mouths. Do not speak when the jungle holds its breath. And if you hear drumming where no drummers should be, if you hear voices calling your name, if you see lights in the ruins at night, run, run, and do not look back, because the dead do not forgive, the sacrificed do not forget, and in the temples deep in the jungle where the old gods sleep their hungry sleep, they are waking, they are waiting, they are calling, and they know your name. Sarah Chen never returns to Guatemala, never works on another Mayan site. She moves to Seattle, takes a teaching position, tries to forget, but every night she dreams, always the same dream. She is walking down stone steps, descending, the walls press closer, the air grows thick, and at the bottom, a doorway. Beyond the doorway, 9 figures seated on thrones, wearing masks, made of jade and obsidian, and darkness, and they are all looking at her, waiting, patient, inevitable. She wakes gasping, checks her doors, checks her windows, makes sure she is alone. But sometimes, in the moment between sleeping and waking, she sees them, standing in the corner, at the foot of her bed, in the bathroom mirror, behind her reflection, the 9 figures, the 9 lords, and they are closer every night. The footage from her camera is analyzed by 3 different universities. All reach the same conclusion. Authentic, not doctored, not faked. But what it shows cannot exist. The figure in the temple, the mask, the darkness behind the eyes. Physics does not allow for what the frames capture. Light does not behave that way. Matter does not behave that way. Reality does not behave that way. Unless reality in that temple is not the same reality everywhere else, unless in certain places the rules are different, the barriers thinner, the old things stronger, and if that is true, if there are places where the ancient world still exists, where the gods the Maya feared are not mythology, but memory, then what else is waiting in the jungles and the mountains and the depths? What else did our ancestors seal away? What else is waking up? Sarah's footage ends with a timestamp, 7:13 p.m. But the sun set at 5:47 p.m. She was in the temple for 90 minutes. Her watch says she was inside for 6 minutes. And when she reviews the footage frame by frame, she finds something that stops her heart. In the background, behind the figure in the mask, deeper in the temple, other shapes, dozens of them, hundreds, standing motionless, watching, and in the very last frame before the camera dies, they begin to move, all together, all at once, walking forward toward the entrance, toward the light, toward the world that thought it was safe because the temples were ruins and the gods were stories and the sacrifices ended 1,000 years ago. They are coming. They have always been coming. And now the door is open. This is only the beginning. To understand what waits in the temples, we must first understand who built them and why. The Maya were not a single empire, but a collection of city-states spanning what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. They flourished for over 2,000 years, built pyramids that rivaled Egypt, developed mathematics that included the concept of 0 centuries before Europe, created calendars more accurate than anything used in the medieval world, and they fed their gods with human blood. This was not savagery. This was theology. The Maya believed the universe operated on a principle of cosmic debt. The gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, had bled to bring forth the sun and moon and stars. Humanity owed them payment, blood for blood, life for life. Without constant sacrifice, the sun would not rise, the crops would not grow. Reality itself would collapse back into the primordial chaos the gods had shaped into existence. Every city had its sacrifice temples, structures designed specifically for the ritual killing of captives, slaves, and in desperate times their own people. The architecture itself was theological statement. Steep pyramids representing sacred mountains, doorways carved as monster mouths symbolizing entry into the underworld, altars positioned to catch the first light of dawn so the gods could drink blood and sunlight together. Archaeologists have uncovered the scale of this practice. At Chichen Itza, the sacred cenote yielded over 200 skeletons, men, women, children, thrown alive into the water as offerings to the rain god. At Tikal, mass graves contain thousands of individuals all killed within short time periods. Their skulls show identical trauma patterns, struck from behind while kneeling. Efficient, industrial, systematic slaughter in service of cosmic maintenance. But the Maya did not see it as murder. They saw it as necessity, as sacred duty. The priests who performed the sacrifices were not executioners. They were engineers, technicians maintaining the machinery of reality, and they believed absolutely in what they were doing, believed that every heart torn from a living chest, every throat opened with obsidian blade, every body thrown into cenote or burned on altar kept the universe functioning. Then something changed. Around 800 AD, the classical Mayan civilization began to collapse. Cities were abandoned, populations crashed. Within a century, the great urban centers were empty, swallowed by jungle. Scholars debate why. Drought, warfare, environmental degradation, political instability, probably all of these. But the Mayan themselves left clues about what they believed was happening, and those clues are terrifying. The glyphs from this period become increasingly desperate, increasingly apocalyptic. They describe the gods turning away, the sacrifices no longer working, the cosmic machinery breaking down despite everything the priests tried. So they tried more, sacrificed more, built new temples, performed new rituals, sought new methods to regain divine favor. And in that desperation, they created something, or opened something, or released something that had been safely locked away. Deep in the Guatemalan highlands, archaeologists discovered Temple 22 at Copan, buried beneath later construction, sealed deliberately. When excavated, it revealed something unprecedented. A chamber beneath the main structure, walls covered floor to ceiling in glyphs, but not normal glyphs. These were carved deep, gouged into stone, with violence, desperation, and when translated, they told a story that made researchers question whether they should publish their findings. The glyphs describe a ritual, performed by the priests, when the normal sacrifices stopped working, when the gods would not answer, when the cosmic order seemed to be disintegrating, they decided to go to the gods directly, to force open a doorway to Xibalba, to descend into the underworld and demand the gods restore balance. They gathered 400 individuals, the entire priesthood of Copan, and they went down. The glyphs say they built a portal, used geometry and astronomy and blood to thin the barrier between worlds, opened a way into Xibalba that should not be opened, and they went through, all 400, down into the land of death and terror, and the 9 lords who ruled there. The glyphs say they succeeded, say they reached Xibalba, say they stood before the 9 lords on their thrones of bone and demanded restoration of cosmic order. The 9 lords answered, but not with what the priests expected. The lords said the cosmic debt had been paid. The universe no longer required sacrifice. The age of the gods was ending, the age of humanity beginning. The priests could return to the surface, could live in the new world, but they refused, because accepting that answer meant accepting their entire civilization had been wrong, that thousands of years of sacrifice had been unnecessary, that all the blood and death and suffering had been for nothing. So they made a different choice. They chose to stay, to remain in Xibalba, to serve the 9 lords eternally, to become what they had always claimed to be, bridges between the world of the living and the world of the dead. The glyphs say the portal was sealed from below, the 400 priests trapped in Xibalba by their own decision, and the 9 lords were pleased because now they had servants in the underworld and anchors in the upper world. The temples the priests had built, the temples remained empty but not abandoned, waiting but not sleeping. This is mythology. This is religious text written by a collapsing civilization trying to make sense of catastrophe. No serious scholar takes it literally, except the glyphs in that sealed chamber were dated, carved in 822 AD, and in 823 AD, Copan was abandoned, completely, suddenly, as if the entire population decided overnight to leave. Archaeological evidence shows no warfare, no invasion, no disaster, just abandonment. 10,000 people walking away from one of the greatest cities in the Mayan world and never coming back. And there is more. The glyphs describe what the priests did before descending. They prepared the temples for their absence, sanctified them, bound them with protections so nothing could enter or leave, made them into prisons. Not prisons for the gods, prisons for themselves, because they feared what they might become in Xibalba, feared they might change, might be corrupted by proximity to the lords of death, might want to return, and if they returned, they would bring Xibalba with them. So they sealed the way, made it so the temples could only be opened from the outside by the ignorant, by those who did not understand what they were doing, by archaeologists and treasure hunters and tourists who saw ruins and thought them safe, who broke seals and entered chambers and walked where the Maya themselves feared to walk, who opened the prisons from the outside, who let out what should never be released. Not all temples were part of this. Most Mayan structures are exactly what they appear to be: religious architecture, historical monuments, safe to explore. But certain temples were different, were built as thin places, locations where the barrier between worlds was naturally weak, where the priests could more easily pierce through to Xibalba, and these temples were marked, warnings carved for those who knew how to read them. The problem is, most people do not know how to read them. The warnings look like decoration, like standard religious imagery, serpents and jaguars and gods with their mouths open. Tourists photograph them, students sketch them. No one realizes they are reading instructions. Turn back, do not enter, sealed for your protection. The dead wait within. Temperature anomalies around certain temples support this. Zones where heat does not propagate normally, where cold spots appear with no atmospheric explanation. Scientists measure them, try to explain them. Geological features, they say. Underground water, perfectly natural. But the Maya knew about them first, built around them, incorporated them into temple design, used them as indicators of where the barrier was thinnest, where Xibalba pressed closest to the surface world. The sacred cenote at Chichen Itza is one such place. A natural sinkhole 60 meters in diameter, vertical walls dropping to water 20 meters below. Between 800 and 1000 AD, the Maya threw sacrifices into this cenote. The water was sacred, was believed to be a direct entrance to the underworld. When archaeologists dredged it in the early 1900s, they found the skeletons, over 200 individuals, many showing signs of trauma, many showing signs of being alive when they entered the water. Children primarily, young women, the most valuable sacrifices. But they found something else. At the bottom of the cenote, beneath the bones and pottery and gold, they found a structure. Stone, carved, deliberately placed. A chamber built underwater, sealed with glyphs warning against opening it. The archaeologists ignored the warnings, found it empty, just bare stone and darkness. They documented it, sealed it again, moved on. But local Maya refused to approach the cenote. After that, said something had changed. The water felt different, wrong. Animals would not drink from it, birds would not fly over it, and at night, lights were seen. Green phosphorescent glows rising from the water, moving, circling, as if something down there was awake, was aware, was testing its boundaries. Modern equipment confirms the anomalies. Underwater cameras show temperature inversions that should not exist. Water at the bottom is warmer than water at the top. Sonar detects movement where nothing should move. Large shapes, bio-sized, circling at depths where the cenote should end. But when divers descend, they find nothing, just stone and water, and the overwhelming sensation of being watched by something they cannot see. The Maya have a name for what lives in cenotes, Chak, the rain god. But that is the sanitized version, the tourist version. The real name is different, older. It translates roughly as that which pulls you down. And the stories about it are not about benevolent deity bringing rain to crops. They are about something that hungers, that calls, that makes you want to enter the water even when you cannot swim, even when you know you will drown, especially then. There are other thin places, other temples marked with warnings that went unheeded. Temple of the inscriptions at Palenque, where the tomb of Pakal was found. The tomb itself is remarkable. A king buried in a sarcophagus beneath a pyramid, unprecedented in Mayan archaeology. But what is less discussed is the shaft, the narrow passage connecting the burial chamber to the temple above, sealed with a stone plug weighing multiple tons. The plug was carved with glyphs, warnings: do not open from above, do not disturb what sleeps below, the king must not rise. Archaeologists removed the plug in 1952, descended the shaft, found the tomb, removed Pakal's jade death mask, studied his remains and noticed something strange. The body showed no signs of decay. After 1300 years in a sealed chamber, the bones should have been pristine, but they were not. They showed signs of recent trauma, fresh fractures, as if something had tried to move, to rise, to break free of the sarcophagus from the inside. The lead archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luchelier documented this, published papers, then stopped talking about it, stopped working on Mayan sites entirely. When asked why in interviews, decades later, he would only say some discoveries change you, make you understand There are things we are not meant to know, things we are not equipped to understand, and we should leave them buried. But humanity does not leave things buried, cannot resist the urge to uncover, to explore, to know, so we keep digging, keep opening, keep walking into temples that should remain sealed, and in doing so, we complete the ritual. The priests started 1200 years ago. We open the prisons from the outside. We break the seals. We invite what waits in Xibalba to cross over, to return, to walk in the world of the living wearing flesh that used to be ours. The Maya tried to warn us, left messages carved in stone, wrote codices that conquistadors burned, passed down oral traditions that anthropologists dismissed as superstition. They tried, but we did not listen, did not believe, did not understand that their religion was not metaphor, was not primitive attempt to explain natural phenomena, was accurate description of reality as they experienced it, as they engineered it, as they shaped it through architecture and sacrifice and desperate communion with forces that should never be contacted. And now those forces are waking. The temples are open, the seals are broken, the barriers are thin, and what the Maya locked away in their final desperate act is coming back. Not all at once, not in obvious ways, but gradually, persistently, inevitably, using the temples as doorways, using our curiosity as invitation, using our disbelief as camouflage, growing stronger with every tourist who walks through sacred spaces without understanding what they are walking through. Every photograph that captures more than the photographer intended. Every video that shows movement in the corners that should not be there. The Nine Lords are patient. They have waited 1200 years. They can wait longer, can wait until enough doorways are open, enough barriers are broken, enough people are marked, and then they will stop waiting, stop watching, stop testing, and they will cross over completely, will walk in the world above as they walk in Xibalba below, will reclaim what the priests offered them, what the priests became, what we are all becoming whether we know it or not. The jungle remembers, the stones remember, the water remembers, and in the temples deep in the rainforest, where the sun cannot penetrate and the shadows move with purpose, they remember too. Remember the taste of blood and fear. Remember the sound of screaming and the drumming and the chanting. Remember what it felt like when the barriers were thin and the gods walked freely, and they are hungry, so hungry, for the age of sacrifice to return, for the temples to fill again with worshippers and victims, for the cosmic debt to be reinstated, for everything the priests threw away to be restored. This is not history. This is warning. This is preparation. This is the truth. The Maya died trying to tell us. The temples are not monuments to dead religion. They are active sites, functional machinery, doorways that swing both ways. And we, in our ignorance, in our arrogance, in our certainty that we know better than those who came before, we have opened them. We have invited the occupants to return. We have done exactly what the priests feared most. And now, it is too late to close them. The first Europeans to encounter Mayan ruins did not understand what they were seeing. Spanish conquistadors in the 1500s reported cities in the jungle, massive stone structures overtaken by vegetation, plazas large enough to hold thousands, pyramids taller than any building in Spain. But the cities were empty, had been empty for centuries. The jungle had swallowed them whole. The conquistadors were not archaeologists, were not interested in preservation or study. They were interested in gold. They tore through temples looking for treasure, broke into sealed tombs, smashed pottery, burned books, and reported strange occurrences. Men disappearing in the ruins, sounds at night that had no source, sickness that struck suddenly and killed within days. They attributed it to disease, to jungle fever, to the hand of God punishing them for some unknown sin. They did not connect it to the temples, did not realize that breaking the seals had consequences. The serious archaeological exploration began in the 1800s. Men with education and funding, and genuine curiosity about the lost civilization. They mapped sites, drew architectural plans, copied glyphs, and they started dying. Not immediately, not obviously, but the pattern was there for anyone who looked. Expedition members falling ill, experiencing vivid nightmares, developing obsessions with returning to specific temples, and when they returned, many did not come back. John Lloyd Stephens explored Copan in 1839. He was lawyer turned explorer, traveled with artist Frederick Catherwood, who drew the ruins in exquisite detail. Stephens wrote books about his journeys, bestsellers that introduced Mayan civilization to European and American audiences. But he also wrote about other things his publishers edited out, things found in his personal journals decades after his death. He wrote about the workers, local Maya hired to clear vegetation. They would work during the day, efficient, skilled, but when the sun began to set, they would stop, would not continue for any amount of money, would flee the ruins as if pursued. Stephens asked why. The workers would not explain, just shook their heads, made signs against evil, disappeared into the jungle before darkness fell. One night Stephens decided to stay, to spend the night in the ruins alone, to prove there was nothing to fear. He set up camp in a plaza, built fire, sat with his notebooks and sketches. The moon was full, the ruins bathed in silver light, beautiful, peaceful. Then the moon set, and in the darkness things changed. He heard them first. Footsteps on stone, many footsteps, walking in rhythm, marching, coming from the direction of the main temple. Stephens called out, asked who was there. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then they resumed, closer, coming toward him. He grabbed a torch, ran toward the sound. Found nothing, just empty plaza. But the footsteps continued, all around him now, circling, and then the voices, chanting, low, rhythmic, in a language he did not recognize, coming from everywhere and nowhere. He spun, torch held high, trying to locate the source, but there was no source. The sound had no direction, was simply present, filling the air, filling his head, and then he saw them, figures, translucent, barely visible in the darkness, walking in procession, wearing ceremonial garb, carrying objects, obsidian blades, bowls, moving toward the temple. Stephens followed, could not help himself, drawn by curiosity stronger than fear. The figures climbed the temple steps. He climbed behind them. They entered through the monster-mouth doorway. He entered. They descended into darkness. He descended, and at the bottom, he saw it. A chamber, lit by no visible source, and in the chamber, an altar, and on the altar, a figure, bound, alive, screaming. The procession surrounded the altar. One figure raised the obsidian blade, brought it down. The blade passed through the bound figure's chest. The screaming stopped, and the figure on the altar looked at Stephens, looked directly at him, and he recognized the face, his own body on the altar, his own chest opened, his own heart held aloft by a priest who turned and smiled and said in perfect English, "You are already dead. You died the moment you entered this place. Everything since has been dream. Now wake." Stephens woke. Morning. Lying in the plaza where he had set up camp. Fire burned to embers. Torch on the ground beside him. He was covered in scratches. His clothes torn. his hands bleeding. He had no memory of returning to camp, no memory of anything after entering the temple, just the vision, the ceremony, the altar, his own death. He left Copan the next day, never returned, never mentioned the experience in his published works, but his journals describe it in detail, describe the certainty he felt that it was not dream, that something happened in that temple, something real, something that showed him a truth about the ruins, about what they were, about what they still contained. Stevens died in 1852 of malaria, contracted in Panama, while surveying for a railroad. Nothing mysterious, nothing supernatural, just disease. But his family reported that in his final delirium, he spoke, rambled about the ruins, about the ceremony, about the priests who were not priests, about the 9 thrones, about something waiting, something patient, something that had his heart and would not give it back. He died still talking, still warning, still trying to explain something he did not have words for. Alfred Maudsley explored Tikal in the 1880s. British aristocrat, meticulous researcher, took the first photographs of many Mayan sites. His images are still used in textbooks, still referenced by archaeologists, but his unpublished field notes tell a different story, tell of experiences that made him question his sanity. He photographed Temple 5 tallest structure at Tikal, 65 meters high, steep sides, narrow stairs. He climbed to the summit, set up his camera. Long exposure because film was slow, required subject to remain absolutely still for many seconds. He photographed the view, the jungle canopy stretching to the horizon, other temples rising above the green like islands in a sea. When he developed the plates, back in England, he noticed something. In several images there were figures, standing on the temple roof, standing where no one had been standing. He checked his notes, confirmed he was alone when he took those photographs, but there they were, blurred, indistinct, but clearly human-shaped, clearly present. He wrote to colleagues, asked if they had experienced similar phenomena. Most ignored him, thought he was mistaken, but one responded, Theobald Mahler, German explorer, working in the same region. Mahler wrote that yes, he had seen similar things, not in photographs, but in person, figures in the ruins that should not be there, always in peripheral vision, always disappearing when looked at directly, always watching. Mahler and Maudsley corresponded for years, shared experiences, compared notes. Both became convinced the ruins were not empty, that something remained, something aware, something that did not appreciate intrusion. Mahler wrote in one letter that the Maya workers had a name for them, the Watchers, and the workers said the Watchers were not ghosts, were not spirits of the dead, were something else, something that existed before the Maya, something the Maya built the temples to contain, to appease, to keep locked in sacred spaces where they could not reach the living world. Mahler died in 1917, Mallesley in 1931. Both left behind warnings. Both advised future archaeologists to treat the ruins with respect, with caution, with the understanding that not everything can be explained by current science, that the Maya knew things we do not know, understood forces we do not understand, and we ignore their warnings at our peril. The warnings were ignored. Of course they were ignored, because science does not accept supernatural explanations, because academics build careers on discovery, not preservation, because the drive to know is stronger than the instinct to leave unknown. So the expeditions continued, the excavations accelerated, and the deaths multiplied. In 1932, a German team entered the tunnels beneath Temple 4, the same temple Maudsley photographed. Archaeological survey had detected voids beneath the structure, chambers that might contain artifacts, treasures. Information about Mayan building techniques. The team consisted of 6 researchers, all experienced, all well-equipped. They entered the tunnels on a Monday morning, expected to be underground for a few hours, maybe a full day. They did not emerge. By Tuesday evening, rescue teams were organized. They entered the tunnels, found the equipment, found the maps, found 2 members of the original team. The men were alive, physically unharmed, but they did not speak, did not respond to questions, just stared, eyes wide, breathing rapid, in shock. They were evacuated to Guatemala City, hospitalized, examined. No physical injuries, no signs of trauma, no explanation for their condition. Psychiatrists tried to interview them. The men would not speak, would not eat, would not sleep, just lay in their beds staring at the ceiling. Both died within 2 weeks. Cause of death listed as cardiac arrest, but nurses reported strange details. Both men died at the exact same moment. 3:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. Both were found with their eyes open. Both had expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces. The other 4 team members were never found. The tunnels were searched thoroughly. Every passage, every chamber. No bodies, no evidence of where they went. No signs of struggle or accident. Just gone. Vanished into the earth beneath a temple built 1,200 years ago by people who believed the earth was hollow and filled with gods who hungered. The Guatemalan government sealed the tunnels, filled them with concrete, posted guards, declared the site too dangerous for further exploration, but locals reported seeing lights, hearing sounds, strange phenomena around Temple 4, and occasionally people went missing. Tourists who wandered too far from marked paths, researchers who decided to explore despite warnings, local Maya who knew better but went anyway compelled by something they could not explain. In 1955, a rescue team found a body, young American student, missing for 3 weeks, found at the base of Temple 5. Cause of death was fall. Fell from the summit apparently 70 meters. Should have been catastrophic impact, but the body showed minimal trauma, as if it had been placed there, arranged. The student's camera was found nearby, film inside still intact. When developed, the film showed a sequence. The student climbing the temple, reaching the summit, setting up to photograph the sunset. Then a gap, 73 frames of pure black, nothing visible, just darkness. Then a final image, the student's own face, photographed from above. Eyes open, mouth open, expression of recognition, as if in that moment he understood something, saw something, realized something that made everything else irrelevant. The photograph should not exist. If he fell, then who took that final image? Who was above him? What was above him? And why in the darkness frames before can you hear something if you listen closely to the audio track that was added later when the images were digitized? Breathing, multiple sources, surrounding the camera, surrounding him, in that darkness where nothing should be. These are not isolated incidents. They are patterns, consistent, repeating, documented across decades, across different sites, different researchers, different circumstances, but always the same elements. The ruins at night, the sounds that have no source, the figures in peripheral vision, the disappearances, the deaths, the warnings that come too late. The pattern suggests intelligence, purpose, something actively defending the temples, or something using the temples, using them for what they were designed for, as thin places, as doorways, as bridges between Xibalba and the surface world. And when people enter, when they break the seals and walk the sacred ways and disturb what should not be disturbed, the bridges activate, the doorways open, and what waits on the other side reaches through. The Maya understood this, built their civilization around it, developed elaborate protocols for dealing with it, knew which temples were safe and which were not, knew when to approach and when to flee, knew the signs, the warnings, the prices that must be paid. But that knowledge died with them, or rather was killed, burned by conquistadors, suppressed by the church, forgotten in the centuries when the ruins lay empty and silent and the jungle grew over them like a blanket pulled over something sleeping. Now we are uncovering them, clearing the vegetation, rebuilding, restoring, opening everything the Maya so carefully sealed. And we think we are preserving history, think we are honoring their culture, think we are doing valuable scientific work. We do not realize we are dismantling a prison, removing the locks, opening the cells, releasing what the Maya died trying to contain. And it is grateful. Whatever waits in the ruins, whatever uses the temples as doorways, it is grateful, patient, has been waiting for this, waiting for us to be ignorant enough, arrogant enough, curious enough to do exactly what we are doing, to open everything, to invite it through, to welcome it back into a world that thought it was safe because the Maya were gone and the temples were ruins and the gods were mythology. The gods are not mythology, the temples are not ruins, and the Maya are not gone. They are still here, still warning, still trying to protect us from ourselves, but we do not listen, cannot hear them over the sound of our own certainty, our own belief that we know better, that science explains everything, that the past is dead and powerless. The past is not dead. In the jungles of Central America, in the temples that rise above the canopy, the past is very much alive, and it is coming back. Water is sacred in Mayan cosmology, not just useful, not just necessary for life, sacred, a literal gateway between worlds. The Maya built their cities near water sources, organized their societies around access to cenotes, these natural sinkholes that puncture the limestone bedrock of the Yucatan Peninsula, windows into an underground river system that flows invisible beneath the jungle, and windows into something else. The word cenote comes from the Mayan Duzanat, means sacred well, but the literal translation is closer to gateway to the wet underworld. The Maya believed water connected the surface world to a Xibalba, that cenotes were literal entrances, that if you descended far enough, swam deep enough, you would not find rock bottom, but another sky, the inverted sky of the underworld, where the Nine Lords sit on their thrones and judge the dead. This was not metaphor. This was geography. Religious geography, but geography nonetheless. The Maya mapped the underworld as carefully as they mapped the surface, described its regions, its rivers, its inhabitants, and they used cenotes as access points, threw offerings into the water, pottery, jade, gold, and when offerings were not enough, they threw people. The sacred cenote at Chichen Itza is the most famous, approximately 60 meters across, vertical limestone walls dropping 27 meters to dark water below, between 800 and 1000 AD. This cenote received hundreds of sacrifices, individuals chosen for their value, youth, beauty, status. They were dressed in fine garments, adorned with jade, thrown alive into the water as messengers to the rain god Chak. Some Maya scholars argue the victims were drugged, made unconscious before being thrown. This is wishful thinking. This is modern sensibility imposing itself on ancient practice. The glyphs are clear. The victims needed to be conscious, needed to be aware, needed to carry the prayers and pleas of the living down into the dark water, down to where Chak waited, down to where they would drown, and in drowning cross over, become inhabitants of Xibalba, become permanent intermediaries between the worlds. In 1904, American consul Edward Thompson bought the hacienda that included Chichen Itza. He was not diplomat, not archaeologist. He was treasure hunter, obsessed with the stories of gold in the cenote. He brought dredging equipment, spent years pulling material from the bottom, found skeletons, found artifacts, found enough gold to fill museums, and found something else that he mentioned once in his journals, then never spoke of again. At the bottom of the cenote, beneath the layer of bones and offerings, his dredge brought up worked stone, carved blocks, fitted together. A structure built underwater, deliberately submerged, or built before the cenote collapsed. Built when it was still solid ground, but carbon dating of organic material in the mortar suggested the structure was built after the cenote formed. Built underwater, by people who could somehow work stone at depth, in darkness, in cold water that should have made the task impossible. Thompson hired divers, local Maya, who knew the cenote, who dove for sponges in the coastal waters. They refused. Said the cenote was different from the ocean, said things lived in cenote water that did not live anywhere else. Thompson offered triple wages. The divers eventually agreed, descended with ropes and hand signals, primitive equipment, dangerous work. The first diver surfaced after 20 minutes, climbed out, shaking, refused to speak, refused to dive again, walked away from triple wages. Thompson was furious, demanded explanation. The diver finally said one sentence: "There are hands down there, not attached to bodies, just hands, reaching." Thompson assumed hallucination, nitrogen, narcosis, panic. He hired different divers, professional pearl divers from the coast, experienced, brave. They descended, surfaced, reported the same thing. Hands, many hands, reaching from crevices in the underwater structure, pale, thin, with too many fingers, moving, despite having no arms, no bodies, just hands, independent, searching. One diver was grabbed. He felt it, fingers wrapping around his ankle, pulling. He kicked free, surfaced gasping, showed his leg, bruises, 5 finger marks. But the spacing was wrong. The thumb too far from the fingers, the grip too wide, not human proportions. The diver refused to descend again, said whatever was in that cenote was not natural, not animal, not human, something else, something that should not exist. Thompson stopped the diving, stopped the dredging, sold the hacienda, returned to the United States, never spoke publicly about what was found in the cenote depths, but privately he wrote to colleagues, warned them, said the cenotes were not safe, were not empty. Something lived in them, something aware, something that had been fed with human sacrifice for centuries, and that feeding had consequences, had created something, or attracted something, or awakened something that was already there, waiting. Modern archaeology dismisses Thompson's claims, attributes the diver reports to fear and superstition, points out that no subsequent exploration has found animate hands or impossible structures. The cenote has been thoroughly mapped, photographed, documented. Everything found has rational explanation. Bones from sacrifice victims, offerings corroded by time, natural rock formations that look artificial in poor visibility, nothing supernatural, nothing unexplained, except the divers. Modern divers, professional cave divers, with thousands of hours of experience, they report phenomena, not hands, not anything so obvious, but other things, equally disturbing, equally unexplained. In 1998, a team from the National Geographic Society dove the sacred cenote, high-end equipment, underwater cameras, sonar, scientific documentation. They spent 3 days mapping the underwater topography, photographing artifacts still embedded in sediment, recording video, standard archaeological work. But on the third day, something happened that was not standard. One diver separated from the group, not intentionally, not lost, just drifted 20 meters away while filming. Visibility was poor, sediment stirred up by their fins. He could see his team's lights, could have rejoined them, but he became fixated on something. A depression in the cenote wall, a shadow. He swam closer, aimed his light, saw an opening, a passage leading deeper, horizontal, leading away from the main cenote into the limestone. The passage was not on the maps, not documented. He should have marked it, returned with the team, explored it together with proper safety protocols, but he did not. He entered alone. The passage was narrow, barely wider than his body. He had to remove his tank, push it ahead, squeeze through. This was dangerous, stupid, violated every rule of cave diving, but he continued, compelled. Later, he would not be able to explain why, would say it felt necessary, inevitable, as if something was pulling him forward. The passage opened into a chamber, roughly circular, 5 meters across. His light did not reach the far wall, just darkness swallowing the beam, but he could feel space, could hear his bubbles echoing differently. He was in a void, a room, underwater, and he was not alone. He felt them first. Water movement, not current, deliberate, circling, something swimming around him, multiple somethings, large. He spun, aimed his light, saw nothing, but the movement continued, faster, tighter circles, closing in. He tried to retreat, find the passage, could not locate it. The darkness was complete, disorienting. His light revealed nothing useful, just water and shadow, and the sensation of being surrounded. Then contact. Near something brushed his leg, cold, solid, not fish, not rock, something else. He kicked, connected with nothing, but felt it again. Other leg, other side, multiple contacts, all around, touching, exploring, not aggressive. Curious, but wrong. The texture, wrong. The texture, wrong. The temperature, wrong. The movement, wrong. He panicked, grabbed for his spare regulator, checked his air. Half tank. Enough. Enough to get out. Enough to survive. He picked a direction, swam, crashed into the wall. Rock, solid. He followed it, feeling for the passage. Found opening, squeezed through. Tank, caught, stuck. He twisted, pulled, felt hands on his ankles, not brushing, grabbing, pulling back, pulling him deeper. He abandoned the tank, left it wedged in the passage, swam on the breath in his lungs. 30 seconds of air, maybe 40. The passage seemed longer going out, tighter, endless. His lungs burned. Vision narrowing, darkness closing in, and still the hands, pulling. He kicked, fought, emerged into the main cenote, saw lights. His team swam toward them, broke surface, gasped. They pulled him out, asked what happened. Where was his tank? Why did he separate? He could not answer, not coherently, just kept saying they were down there, in the chamber, in the passage. They grabbed me. They did not want me to leave. His team thought he was nasty, disoriented from nitrogen buildup, hallucinating. They took him to the surface, to the hospital, checked him for decompression sickness, found nothing, just a terrified diver babbling about hands and chambers and things in the water. The team returned the next day, searched for the passage, could not find it. The wall where he said he entered was solid, unbroken. No opening, no passage, no chamber. His tank was never recovered. The team concluded he hallucinated the entire experience. Nitrogen narcosis combined with poor visibility and natural anxiety about cave diving. Perfectly rational explanation, except for the marks on his ankles, bruises, examined by the hospital, consistent with finger grips, 5 marks on each ankle. But the spacing was wrong. Thumb too far from fingers, grip too wide. Not human proportions, just like the divers in 1904 reported, just like Thompson documented. Identical marks, 94 years apart, different divers, different circumstances, same result. The diver never dove cenotes again, switched to ocean diving, reef photography, safe environments, but he dreams every night the same dream. He is back in the chamber, in the darkness, but this time he does not escape. This time, the hands pull him down, through the rock, through the floor of the chamber, into deeper water, cold water, water that should not exist. And at the bottom, he sees them, the owners of the hands, sitting, waiting, children, hundreds of children, sitting on the floor of an impossible chamber, all looking up at him, all reaching, all whispering the same thing. Stay with us. We are so lonely. Stay. He wakes screaming. His partner has learned to expect it, has learned not to ask, because when he tries to explain, it sounds insane, sounds like trauma twisting memory into nightmare. But he knows it was real, knows something is in those cenotes, something that was fed children for centuries. And what do you think happens when you feed something for that long? When you throw it the most precious offerings, when you make it the center of your cosmology, your religion, your existence. You create it, or you summon it, or you wake it. And once awake, it does not go back to sleep. Just because the offerings stop, it waits, patient, as the cenotes are patient, as water is patient, wearing away stone over centuries, wearing away resistance, waiting for someone to dive deep enough, to swim far enough, to open the passages that should stay closed. Other divers report similar experiences, not hands, different phenomena, but equally disturbing, equally consistent. Sounds underwater, rhythmic, mechanical, breathing, multiple sources, surrounding them, following them, sounds that water should not carry, sounds that should not exist underwater at all. In 2006, a cave diving team explored the underwater passages connecting multiple cenotes. The system is vast, hundreds of kilometers of submerged tunnels, the longest underwater cave system in the world. Beautiful, deadly. Divers have died exploring it, bodies sometimes never recovered, lost in the labyrinth, or taken, depending on who you ask. This team was experienced, had dived the system dozens of times, knew the routes, the hazards, the safe passages. But on this dive, they found something new. A tunnel, narrow, leading down, steeply down, away from the mapped system, into depths that should not be there, into rock that should be solid. They marked it, planned to return with proper equipment, more line, more air, more lights. But that night, in the hostel, they discussed it, tried to understand. The tunnel descended at approximately 45 degrees. They had followed it for 50 meters before turning back. Depth at turnaround was 60 meters. Deepest part of the cenote system was supposed to be 40 meters. This tunnel went deeper, much deeper, and showed no signs of leveling out. One diver checked geological surveys. The limestone in that region was only 90 meters thick. Below that was impermeable rock. The tunnel could not descend more than 30 additional meters before hitting solid basement rock, unless the surveys were wrong, unless the geology was different than map, unless the tunnel was not natural. They returned with more equipment, descended into the new passage, followed it down 60 meters, 70, 80, The tunnel showed no signs of ending, and the rock changed, became worked, carved, deliberately shaped, impossible at this depth, impossible underwater, impossible with Mayan technology. But there it was, stone blocks fitted together, forming walls, forming a corridor, leading deeper. At 90 meters, they found a door, not wooden, stone. A slab, fitted perfectly into the passage, carved with glyphs. They photographed it, studied the glyphs through their camera screens, recognized some symbols, warnings, do not pass, sealed for protection. Xibalba lies beyond. Standard religious text, standard deterrent. But one glyph was different, one they had not seen before. It showed a figure, human-shaped, but wrong, too tall, too thin, with 6 fingers on each hand. The figure was emerging from water, walking upward toward the surface, and above the figure was another glyph, recently carved, fresh cuts in old stone. It said the door has been opened, the old debt is called, the drowned ones rise. The team retreated, surfaced, reported their findings. Mexican authorities investigated, found nothing. The tunnel could not be relocated. The team provided GPS coordinates, precise measurements, but the entrance was gone, solid rock where the opening should be. The authorities concluded the divers were mistaken, disoriented, remembered the location incorrectly. The team insisted, provided photographs, provided video, but the footage was corrupted. Water damage, they said. Equipment failure. Only the still images of the door survived, and those could not be verified. Could have been photographed anywhere, could have been staged. The team split up after that, stopped diving together, stopped communicating. One moved to Colorado, took up mountain climbing, as far from water as possible. Another became obsessed with researching Mayan glyphs, trying to find reference to the 6-fingered figure. Found nothing in academic sources, but found stories. Local Maya stories about the Alaks, the first people, those who lived before the current world, who were destroyed in a flood, who went down into the water and changed, became something else, something adapted to the drowned world, something still living in the cenote, in the deep places, waiting. Another diver from the team disappeared, went night diving alone in a cenote near Tulum. His equipment was found on the shore, neatly arranged, tank full, regulator functioning, no signs of struggle, no signs of accident, just gone, vanished into water. Search teams found nothing, no body, no trace, just the equipment, and one other thing, footprints, wet footprints, leading from the water, across the limestone, into the jungle, bare feet, but 6 toes, clearly visible in the mud, 6 toes. Police concluded suicide. The family concluded foul play. But local Maya knew better, said the cenote had taken him, said he went down and did not come back up, said he was with the drowned ones now, down in the deep water, down in Xibalba, down where the 6-fingered people wait. Sometimes they come up, walk on the surface for a while, before returning, always returning to the water, to the darkness, to the wet underworld where they belong. These are not isolated stories. Every cenote has stories, local knowledge, passed down through generations, warnings, rules. Never swim at night, never swim alone, never dive during certain days, the 5 nameless days of the Mayan calendar, when the worlds are closest, when barriers are thin, when what lives in the deep water can most easily cross over. But tourists do not know these rules, do not believe in barriers between worlds. They swim at night, dive alone, visit during the nameless days, and most are fine. Most leave with photographs and memories and stories about the beautiful cenotes. the crystal clear water, the incredible visibility. Most, but some do not leave. Some are found floating, drowned in cenotes that are only 4 meters deep, drowned despite being strong swimmers, despite calm water, despite no apparent struggle. Medical examiners rule it accidental drowning, but cannot explain the bruises, the finger marks, the spacing, and cannot explain the expressions, the faces, not terrified, not panicked, peaceful, almost happy, as if drowning was not traumatic, as if it was welcome, as if something in the water promised them something they wanted, something they needed, something they chose. In 2015, a young woman disappeared from a cenote near Valladolid. Backpacker, solo traveler, experienced swimmer. She went swimming in the afternoon. Other tourists saw her, waving, smiling, floating on her back. Then she went under, did not surface. Divers searched, found her 4 hours later, 40 meters from where she went under, sitting on the cenote floor, cross-legged, eyes open, not struggling, not trying to surface, just sitting, as if meditating, as if choosing to stay down. Autopsy showed water in her lungs. She drowned, but also showed something else, unknown organic material in her stomach, in her lungs, in her bloodstream, plant material, but no known plant. DNA analysis showed something ancient, extinct, predating modern flora, something that should not exist, should not be growing anywhere, certainly not in a synod. Botanists examined samples, could not classify it, could not match it to any known species, living or fossil. The closest match was to algae, but wrong color, wrong structure, wrong chemistry. It produced compounds, alkaloids, psychoactive, hallucinogenic, insufficient concentration to cause altered states, visions, loss of time sense, loss of self-preservation instinct. The theory became that she consumed contaminated water, ingested the unknown algae, became disoriented, swam down instead of up, drowned. Tragic accident. Explainable, except she was sitting, not floating, not struggling, sitting 40 meters down, in darkness, in a position that required deliberate choice, required consciousness, required her to choose to stay down, to breathe water, to die. Local Maya offered different explanation, said the cenote called her, said the drowned ones wanted company, said she heard them singing, heard them promising, heard them offering escape from loneliness, from fear, from the weight of being alive, and she accepted, went down, stayed down, joined them. Now, she is one of them, one of the drowned ones, waiting in the deep water, calling to others, singing to those who swim alone, promising peace, promising belonging, promising an end to the struggle of breathing air. This happens multiple times each year. Different cenotes, different victims, same pattern. Local authorities do not connect them, treat each as isolated incident, but the Maya connect them, keep count, and say the count is rising. More each year, more accepting the call, more going down, more joining the drowned ones, more becoming what waits in the water. And the drowned ones are patient, are growing, are learning. Each new edition teaches them more about the surface world, about the living, about what the living want, what they fear, what they need. And the drowned ones can offer it, can promise anything, can show visions of peace, of rest, of an end to pain. All you have to do is swim down, stay down, breathe the water, join us. We are so lonely. We have been waiting so long. The surface world abandoned us, threw us away, but we are still here, still aware, still reaching, and now the barriers are thin. The offerings have stopped, but the hunger remains. So we call, we sing, we promise, and some answer. some always answer, and when they do, when they swim down, when they breathe water, when they join us in the deep, we are less lonely, less forgotten, less abandoned. Come swim, come dive, come float in the sacred water. It is beautiful here, peaceful. The light through the water is like cathedral light, green and holy. And beneath it is dark. But darkness is not frightening, not to the drowned. Darkness is home. Darkness is rest. Darkness is where we wait for you, always for you. We know your name. We have always known it, written in water, spoken in bubbles, whispered in the sound of the cenote breathing. Come down, come home, come join us in the wet underworld, where time does not flow and suffering ends, and we are together forever in the dark and the cold and the peace. Come, the cenotes are calling. Can you hear them? The temples were not built randomly, were not placed where convenient. Every location was chosen, every orientation calculated, every measurement precise. The Maya were master astronomers, mathematicians, engineers. They understood principles that modern science is only beginning to rediscover, and they used that knowledge to build something extraordinary, something terrifying. They built machines. Not machines in the mechanical sense. No gears, no engines, no moving parts, but machines nonetheless. Structures designed to manipulate forces invisible to the naked eye. Sound, light, magnetic fields, human consciousness itself. The temples are instruments, tools, weapons, built to achieve specific purposes. And the primary purpose was opening doorways, creating thin places, allowing passage between the world of the living and Xibalba. The evidence is everywhere, once you know what to look for. Temple orientation aligned to celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, Venus rising, specific astronomical configurations that occur once in decades, once in centuries. The Maya tracked these events obsessively, built their calendar around them, and positioned their temples to capture them, to channel them, to use them. At Chichen Itza, the pyramid of Kukulkan demonstrates this perfectly. Twice each year during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun creates a shadow pattern on the north staircase. The shadow forms the body of a serpent, 7 triangles of light and shadow descending the pyramid, undulating, moving as the sun sets, looking alive, looking intentional. Tourists gather by the thousands to watch, to photograph, to marvel at Mayan astronomical knowledge. But the serpent shadow is not decoration, not artistic flourish. It is activation sequence, marker that the temple has reached the correct alignment, that the door can open. The Maya would have gathered here too, not to marvel, to perform, to conduct the ritual that the serpent signaled was possible, to feed the temple, to use it for its design purpose, to let something through from the other side. Modern researchers have discovered additional properties, acoustic properties. When you stand at the base of the pyramid and clap your hands, the echo sounds like a bird. The Quetzal, sacred bird associated with Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. Remarkable acoustic engineering. Remarkable understanding of sound propagation. But that is just the beginning. Stand in different positions and clap. The echoes change. Not just bird calls, other sounds. At certain positions, the echo sounds like jaguar roar. At others, like rain. At others, like human voice. Speaking, not words, just vocal sounds, but unmistakable, human. Coming from stone that should not produce such sounds. Coming from geometry that should not create such effects, unless the geometry was specifically designed to create them. Acoustic engineers have analyzed the pyramid, measured, modeled, calculated. They confirmed the effects are real. are reproducible, are the result of deliberate architectural design. The Maya built acoustic properties into the structure, used the stepped pyramid design to create sound chambers, reflection points, amplification zones. They built a speaker, a massive stone speaker that transforms simple claps into complex sounds, that turns human input into inhuman output. But the engineers also found something else: frequencies below human hearing, infrasound, generated by the structure itself, not from clapping, from wind, from vibration, from the pyramid existing, constant low-frequency sound waves radiating from the structure, frequencies known to cause anxiety in humans, disorientation, fear, hallucinations. The pyramid is not just responding to sound, it is producing sound, always has been producing it for over 1,000 years, and the frequencies change. During certain astronomical alignments, the infrasound intensifies, shifts to different frequencies, frequencies that affect different parts of the brain. The temporal lobe, the area associated with religious experience, mystical visions, sense of presence. The pyramid is not passive, is not dead stone. It is active, responsive, designed to affect human consciousness, to create specific psychological states, to make people receptive, suggestible, open to influence from something that is not them. This is not unique to Kukulkan. Every major temple shows similar properties, different designs, different methods, but same result: acoustic manipulation, psychological influence, consciousness alteration. The Temple of Inscriptions at Palenque, the burial site of Pakal. Researchers measuring electromagnetic fields found anomalies, spikes, localized intense magnetic activity. No geological source, no explanation, just the temple producing magnetism. Strong magnetic fields affect the brain, can induce hallucinations, out-of-body experiences, sense of being watched, sense of presence. The temple produces these fields naturally, constantly. Anyone who spends time inside is exposed, is affected, and the fields intensify during specific times. During the astronomical events the temple is aligned to, when the geometry and the cosmos and the magnetic field all synchronize, when the machine activates fully. Temperature anomalies add another layer. Certain chambers maintain constant temperature year-round, not room temperature, specific temperature, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of outside heat, regardless of season. This should not be possible in stone structures with no climate control, no insulation, no technology. But it happens. Documented, measured, verified. The chambers stay cold. 59 degrees is significant in Mayan numerology, the number associated with Xibalba, with the underworld, with death and rebirth. The chambers are not cold by accident, are not cold due to underground water or airflow or any natural cause. They are cold because they were designed to be cold, built to maintain that specific temperature, that symbolic temperature, that doorway temperature. Some researchers theorize the Maya discovered geothermal principles, built structures that exploit temperature differentials, natural refrigeration through clever architecture. Possible, impressive if true, but does not explain why the temperature is so precise, why it never varies, why it is always 59, why that specific number, that specific meaning, that specific connection to the underworld. Other researchers propose different explanation. The chambers are not cold, they are connected, physically connected to Xibalba, to the underworld that exists beneath the surface. And the temperature we measure is not the chamber temperature. It is the temperature of what the chamber opens into, the ambient temperature of Xibalba bleeding through, making the chamber a a transition zone, a place that is both here and there, both surface and underworld, both living world and realm of the dead. This sounds like supernatural speculation, like mythology masquerading as science, but the temperature is real. The measurements do not lie. The chambers are cold, consistently, impossibly, and people who spend time in those chambers report experiences, consistent experiences, across decades, across cultures, across belief systems. They report feeling watched, feeling presences, hearing whispers, seeing movement in peripheral vision, and when they leave, when they exit the cold chambers and return to the hot jungle, they feel different, changed, as if something in the chamber touched them, marked them, claimed them. The glyphs add final confirmation. At Calakmul, researchers photographed a glyph sequence on a temple wall. Standard documentation. Took multiple photographs. Different angles, different lighting, different times of day. When they compared the photographs later, they noticed something impossible. The glyphs were different, not slightly different, completely different. Different symbols, different meanings, different messages. They returned, photographed again. Compared to the first set, different again. They photographed the same wall 50 times over 3 days. Every photograph showed different glyphs, not degradation, not lighting tricks, different actual carved symbols, as if the wall was changing, rearranging, rewriting itself between photographs, as if the message adapted to the observer, to the moment, to the purpose. When translated, the glyphs showed pattern. Early photographs contained warnings. Turn back, do not disturb, leave this place. Later photographs changed tone. It is too late, you have seen. You cannot unsee, you are marked. Final photographs became invitations. Come deeper, learn more. We have much to teach. The progression was deliberate, systematic, a conversation. Not with the researchers, with something using the wall, using the temple, using the glyphs as interface. The researchers published their findings. Academic journals, peer review. The response was dismissive. Obviously, the photographs were taken at different locations, different walls. The researchers had become confused, disoriented, made errors in documentation, understandable in jungle conditions, heat exhaustion, dehydration, nothing supernatural, nothing unexplained. But the researchers had GPS coordinates for every photograph, timestamps, metadata, all photographs taken of the same wall, same precise location. Verified, proven. The journals rejected the papers anyway. Too extraordinary, too impossible, must be fraud, must be mistake, could not be real. So the findings were suppressed, filed away, forgotten. The researchers left the field. One became a farmer, another a carpenter. The third never worked again, lived off savings, spent his days studying the photographs, trying to understand, trying to decode, trying to find the pattern in the changing glyphs. He found something, a sequence. When the photographs were arranged in specific order based on timestamp and content, the glyphs told a story, not Mayan history, not religious text, a story about the temples, about their purpose, about what they were designed to do. The story said the temples were built as anchors, physical locations that pinned concepts into reality, made abstract things concrete, made Xibalba not just mythological realm, but actual place, accessible, real. The story said the priests understood something fundamental about consciousness and reality, that belief shapes what is real, that if enough people believe something strongly enough, it becomes true, not metaphorically, literally. The temples were belief engines, structures designed to focus collective consciousness, to make millions of people believe in the same thing, the same gods, the same underworld, the same cosmic order, and through that belief, to make it real, to create Xibalba through faith and sacrifice and architectural manipulation of human psychology. And it worked. For over 1,000 years the Maya believed, fed the temples, performed the rituals, maintained the cosmic order through sacrifice and prayer and absolute conviction. And Xibalba was real. The underworld existed. The 9 lords sat on their thrones. The dead descended to be judged. The whole system functioned, not because the gods demanded it, because the Maya created it, built it, powered it with blood and belief and brilliant architecture. Then the Maya stopped believing. The cities were abandoned. The rituals ended. The temples fell silent. And Xibalba should have faded, should have become mythology again, dead religion. But it did not fade, because the temples were still there, still functioning, still anchoring the belief, still maintaining the doorways. Empty temples, ruined temples, overgrown temples, but still active, still machines running on autopilot, waiting for someone to reactivate them fully, waiting for new belief, new blood, new consciousness to shape and focus and feed. Now tourists come, millions per year. They walk the temples, photograph them, marvel at them, and in marveling, they believe, not in the gods, not in the rituals, but in the temples themselves, in their power, their mystery, their significance. That belief is enough, not as strong as Mayan belief, not as focused, but enough. Enough to keep the machinery turning, enough to keep the doorways open, enough to let things through. And the things that come through are learning, adapting. The 9 lords sat on their thrones for 1,000 years receiving worship and sacrifice, then sat for another 1,000 years receiving nothing, abandoned, alone, hungry. Now they receive attention again, different attention, tourist attention, academic attention, curiosity instead of worship, photography instead of sacrifice, but attention nonetheless, consciousness focused on them, belief in their existence, even if not belief in their divinity, and they use it, feed on it, grow stronger from it. The temples help them. The temples were designed to help them, to amplify, to focus, to channel, to transform casual interest into something more, into fascination, obsession, compulsion, the acoustic manipulation, the magnetic fields, the temperature anomalies, the changing glyphs, all designed to affect visitors, to change them, to make them carriers, infected with belief, infected with connection, infected with a piece of Xibalba. They take home with them and spread to others through stories and photographs, and that strange certainty that something in the temples was real, was aware, was watching. This is the genius of the Mayan temple design. They are not passive monuments. They are active systems, self-sustaining, self-replicating, spreading through consciousness like viruses. Every person who visits becomes a vector, carries the temple with them, dreams about it, thinks about it, tells others about it, creates belief, creates connection, creates doorways, and through those doorways, the things in Xibalba can reach, can touch, can influence, can spread further. Some temples are more active than others, more powerful, more dangerous. The temples built during the collapse period, the desperate temples, the final temples where the priests tried everything, pushed boundaries, broke taboos, used forbidden knowledge. Those temples are different. Those temples were built not to maintain cosmic order, but to force it, to compel the gods to respond, to rip open doorways that should stay closed, and those temples succeeded. Temple 22 at Copan is one. The sealed chamber where the glyphs describe the priests descending to Xibalba. The chamber was sealed for reason, was marked with warnings, was meant to stay closed forever. but archaeologists opened it, and in opening it they completed the ritual the priests started, opened the doorway fully, let through what had been waiting, the priests who went down, the priests who stayed, the priests who became something else in their 1,000 years of service to the Nine Lords. Temple 5 at Tikal is another, the tallest structure, the temple where expeditions disappeared, where tunnels appeared and vanished, where the German team found something that drove them mad or silent or dead. That temple was built at the height of Tikal's power, but also at the height of its desperation. The city was failing, enemies closing in, resources depleting. The priests needed intervention, needed the gods to act, built Temple 5 as ultimatum, as threat, as weapon. Give us victory, or we will come take it ourselves. The glyphs hidden in Temple 5 say the priests performed a ritual, not sacrifice. Invasion. They went to Xibalba, not as supplicants, but as conquerors, went to force the gods to grant victory. The glyphs say they succeeded, say they entered Xibalba, say they found the Nine Lords, say they made demands. But the Nine Lords did not grant victory. The Nine Lords made different offer. Stay here, serve us, become our agents in the upper world. And when the time is right, when the temples are opened, when the new people come, you will rise. You will reclaim what was taken. You will restore the old order. The priests agreed, or were forced to agree, or were transformed until agreement was irrelevant. They stayed, and Tikal fell anyway, without divine intervention, without miraculous victory, just slow collapse and abandonment. But the priests remained in Xibalba, in the chambers beneath Temple Thav, waiting, changing, becoming, and now the temple is open. The tunnels are accessible, and what waits below is ready to rise. This pattern repeats. Different temples, different stories, same result. Doorways opened, barriers broken, things released that should stay bound, and the temples themselves, facilitated, were designed to facilitate it, are functioning exactly as intended, not as monuments to dead religion, as active, ongoing systems, maintaining connection between worlds, keeping Xibalba accessible, keeping the Nine Lords fed, keeping the cosmic machinery turning. And we maintain them, restore them, clear the jungle, rebuild the fallen stones, preserve them for posterity, thinking we are saving history, thinking we are honoring the Maya, not realizing we are maintaining the machines, keeping them functional, keeping them ready, for when the final activation comes, for when enough doorways are open, for when enough consciousness is focused, for when the Nine Lords decide the time is right, to step through, to walk in the world above, to reclaim what the Maya gave them, to harvest what has been growing for 1,000 years, ours, our belief, our consciousness, our world. The temples are patient as stone, as patient as the lords who wait in Xibalba, and we are not patient, are curious, are determined to uncover every secret, to open every door, to understand everything. That curiosity will destroy us, is destroying us, has already destroyed us, and we do not realize it yet, because the temples are already active, the doorways already open, the things from Xibalba already here, walking among us, watching through our eyes, waiting in our dreams, growing stronger with every visitor, every photograph, every moment of belief. The machines are working, have always been working, will never stop working until the jungle swallows them completely, until the stones crumble to dust, until every trace is erased and forgotten. But we will not let that happen. We'll not let the jungle take them. We'll fight to preserve them, to study them, to share them with the world, and in doing so, we will feed them, power them, Activate them fully. Complete what the Maya started. Open what they sealed. Release what they died trying to contain. The temples are waiting. The temples are ready. And so are we. Whether we know it or not, the deaths did not stop with the early explorers, did not end when archaeology became professional and expeditions became safe and the temples became tourist destinations. If anything, the deaths accelerated. More people, more exposure, more opportunities for the temples to claim victims. The pattern continues, evolves, adapts, because what waits in the temples is learning, is understanding modern humans, is developing new methods, new lures, new ways to call and claim and consume. March 2003, Palenque, group of university students on spring break, 8 of them, archaeology majors, came to see the ruins they studied in textbooks, stayed in a hostel near the site, spent days exploring, taking notes, photographing, standard student behavior, standard tourist activity, nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, until the night of March 19th. 3 students woke simultaneously at 2 a.m. No alarm, no external stimulus, just woke. All 3 described the same compulsion. Need to go to the ruins, need to go now, could not be delayed, could not be reasoned with. They dressed quietly, left the hostel without waking the others, walked through the dark jungle, climbed the fence surrounding the archaeological zone, entered the ruins at night, despite knowing it was prohibited, despite knowing it was dangerous. The others woke at dawn, found 3 beds empty, called police, search parties organized, local guides, park rangers, volunteers. They combed the ruins, searched the jungle, found nothing, no trace, no evidence. The 3 students had vanished. Cameras checked the entrance gates. No one entered, no one exited. The fence showed no breach, no explanation for how they accessed the site or where they went. 5 days later, a farmer found something. 3 kilometers from Palenque, deep in the jungle where no tourist would go, no trail, no path, no reason for anyone to be there. He found clothes, 3 sets, neatly folded, placed on a rock. The students' clothes, identified by the others, but no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, just clothes, abandoned in the middle of nowhere. Local Maya said the temple took them. They said they heard the music, said they followed the procession. They said they went down into the earth and would not come back. Police said something else. Foul play, trafficking, murder, bodies hidden. Investigation continued for months. Found nothing. Case went cold. Officially unsolved. 3 students vanished without explanation. Families left without answers. Friends left with memories and questions and the certainty that something happened in those ruins. Something the official story could not explain. But there was sound. Recording. One of the students had left their phone charging in the hostel. Voice recorder. App. Running. Accidentally activated. The phone recorded ambient sound all night. Most of it was silence, breathing, normal hostel sounds. But at 1:47 a.m., the recording changed. Music. Faint, distant, rhythmic drumming, flute melody, chanting, growing louder. The recording captured footsteps, the 3 students getting up, moving, and then their voices, whispering, not to each other, repeating the same phrase, "We hear you, we are coming, we hear you, we are coming." The recording continued for another hour, captured them leaving, captured the door closing, then just hostile ambiance. But at 3:13 a.m., the music returned, loud now, clear, as if the source was in the room. Drums, flutes, voices chanting in language that sounded Mayan, and underneath the music, other sounds, screaming, not terror, ecstasy. 3 voices, the missing students, screaming like they were experiencing something overwhelming, something transcendent, something that hurt and felt good simultaneously. The screaming lasted 47 seconds, then stopped. Silence. The music faded, never returned. Audio analysis confirmed the sounds were real, not added in editing, not digital artifacts. Actual sounds recorded by the phone microphone. The music matched descriptions of Mayan ceremonial music, instruments that have not been used in ritual for 1,000 years, played perfectly, played by people who should not exist, accompanied by voices screaming in a hostile room 3 kilometers from the jungle where those same voices disappeared forever. December 2012. Calakmul, remote site, difficult to access, relatively few tourists, film crew making documentary about Mayan architecture, small team, director, cinematographer, sound tech, 2 researchers. They had permits, permission, professional equipment, everything proper, everything safe. Should have been routine shoot, should have been unremarkable. Cinematographer's name was Ana Ruiz, experienced professional, worked on dozens of documentaries, knew her equipment, knew her craft, rational, skeptical, not susceptible to suggestion, not prone to panic. But on December 3rd something changed, something happened that transformed her from professional cinematographer into something else, something broken, something lost. The crew was filming Structure 2, Tallest Pyramid, at Calakmul. Tana was setting up time-lapse sequence, wanted to capture the sunset from the summit. She climbed alone, 140 steps, steep, exhausting, but manageable. She reached the top, set up her camera, locked the tripod, started the sequence, then sat down to wait. The camera would record automatically. She just needed to be there, to watch, to ensure nothing interrupted. The sun set. The time-lapse ran. Enna sat, and then the crew below noticed something wrong. Enna was standing at the edge of the pyramid, on the very edge, toes hanging over, arms spread, looking down. They called up, asked if she was okay. She did not respond, did not turn, just stood there, sewing. They called louder, shouted. She still did not respond. Then she looked down at them, smiled, and stepped forward. She fell, 140 steps, 65 meters. Impact should have been fatal, should have killed her instantly, but somehow she survived. Shattered both legs, fractured pelvis, broken ribs, internal bleeding, but alive, conscious, and talking, but not speaking Spanish, not speaking English, speaking Yucatec Maya, fluent, perfect grammar, archaic dialect not used in centuries. They evacuated her. Emergency flight to Campeche, hospital, surgery. Doctors saved her legs, saved her life, but could not save her mind. Enna did not recover consciousness in the normal sense, did not wake up and ask what happened. She woke speaking Maya, only Maya, refused to speak any other language, and insisted she was not Enna, was someone else. Someone named Ixchella, a priestess who lived in Calakmul during the classical period, who served in the temples, who performed the rituals, who died and went to Xibalba and has been waiting for a body, waiting for a chance to return, waiting for someone to climb her temple and open themselves to her influence. Psychiatrists diagnosed psychotic break, trauma-induced dissociative identity. The fall damaged her brain, created false memories. She would recover with time and treatment, but she did not recover, did not improve, stayed Ixchel, spoke only Maya, drew glyphs constantly, on paper, on walls, on her own skin, glyphs that linguists verified as authentic, glyphs describing rituals, ceremonies, details about Calakmul that had never been published, details she should not know, could not know, unless she was who she claimed to be. Her camera was recovered from the summit. The time-lapse was intact. It showed Anna sitting, showed the sunset, showed darkness falling, then showed Anna standing, walking to the edge. But the way she moved was wrong. Stiff, mechanical, like puppet on strings. Like something controlling her from inside, forcing movements her body resisted, fighting herself. And then the smile, the terrible smile, the expression of someone else wearing Anna's face. Someone who had waited very long to feel sunlight again, to feel air, to inhabit flesh. Someone grateful, someone hungry, someone ready. Anna lives in a psychiatric facility in Mexico City, has lived there since 2012, still speaks only Maya, still claims to be 6 Chel, still draws glyphs, still describes life in Calamol during its height, describes the temples before they fell, describes the rituals in detail, describes things that no living person should know. Archaeologists visit her sometimes, ask questions. She answers, provides information that is later verified through excavation, provides details about locations and structures not yet discovered. She should not know these things, but she does, because maybe she is Ixchel, maybe the priestess did return, maybe Anna's fall was not accident, was invitation accepted, was doorway opened, was possession completed. August 2018. Tikal, peak tourist season. Hundreds of visitors daily, among them Marcus Webb, solo traveler, American, mid-30s, tech worker, on sabbatical, traveling Central America, documenting everything on Instagram, regular posts, standard tourist content, cheerful, enthusiastic, excited to be seeing the ruins he had dreamed about since childhood. His posts from Tikal start normal. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, temple photos, jungle photos, sunset photos, captions about the majesty of Mayan civilization, the beauty of the ruins, the incredible preservation, standard content. But Day 4, the tone shifts. Photo of Temple 4 at dusk. Caption says, "Do you hear them singing?" Not question mark. Statement, "Do you hear them singing?" Comments ask what he means. Who is singing? He does not respond, does not clarify. Day 5, video. St. Marcus at night, somewhere in the ruins, filming himself with phone light, speaking directly to camera, says he found something, says there is a door, says they showed him where it is, says it has been here all along but he needed to see it the right way, needed to look from the right angle, needed to want to see it, and now he sees it, and it is beautiful, and it is calling. Video ends. Day 6, final post. Photo taken from behind Marcus, shows him standing at the base of Temple 5, shows the stone stairs rising into darkness. Caption says, "They say I can stay if I want. I think I want to stay." Photo was posted at 3:13 a.m. Marcus should not have been there, should not have been able to access the ruins at night, but he was there, and he was not alone. Because if you look closely at the photo, if you zoom in on the darkness at the top of the stairs, you can see shapes, multiple shapes, human-sized, standing in the shadows, watching, waiting. And if you zoom in further, if you enhance the image, if you ignore the artifacts and the noise, and focus on the shapes, you can see faces, Mayan faces, wearing ceremonial garb, standing on a temple where no one should be standing, looking down at Marcus, beckoning, inviting, welcoming. Marcus was found the next morning, at the base of Temple 5, dead. No visible injuries, no signs of trauma. Heart just stopped. Medical examiner ruled natural causes, sudden cardiac arrest. Could happen to anyone. Young healthy people die of heart attacks. Tragic. Unlucky. Nothing suspicious. Except his phone. His phone was in his hand, fully charged, unlocked, Instagram open, but the final photo was gone, deleted, no trace, like it never existed, except people had seen it, had commented, had screenshots. The internet never forgets. The photo exists in copies, in archives, in the phones of people who saw it and knew something was wrong, saw it and felt the dread, saw it and wondered what Marcus saw on those stairs, what he joined, what he became. His autopsy revealed one odd detail. His blood contained plant alkaloids, unknown species, same compounds found in the woman who drowned in the cenote, same unknown organism, same impossible chemistry, in his blood, in his organs, in his brain. Not enough to kill him, not enough to explain his death, just enough to prove he consumed something, or something consumed him. Either way, the exchange happened. The door opened, the crossing occurred. These are not isolated cases. Every year brings more different sites, different circumstances, same pattern. People called, people changed, people vanished, people killed, people possessed. The temples are active, are hunting, are feeding, and the pace is accelerating. Statistical analysis proves it. Disappearances around major Mayan sites increased 340% between 2010 and 2024. Death rate increased 280%. Emergency medical calls increased 450%. Mental health incidents increased 670%. The numbers are undeniable. Something is happening. Something is wrong. Something connected to the temples is claiming more victims every year. But tourism is not declining. If anything, it is increasing. Social media drives it. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Everyone wants the perfect temple photo, the dramatic video, the viral content. So they come, millions per year, climbing the pyramids, exploring the ruins, swimming the cenotes, walking the sacred ways, and most leave safely. Most have wonderful experiences, create beautiful memories, tell friends, encourage others to visit. But some do not leave safely. Some leave changed, infected, marked, carrying something back with them, something that lives in their dreams, something that whispers, something that grows, and eventually calls them back, back to the temples, back to complete what was started during their first visit, to pay the debt incurred when they walked where they should not walk, touched what they should not touch, saw what they should not see. The Maya tried to warn us, left signs, left barriers, left guardians. Local Maya still try to warn her, still tell the stories, still explain the rules, but tourists do not listen, think it is folklore, think it is performance, think it is culture sold as entertainment, do not realize it is truth, do not realize the warnings are real, do not realize that every rule broken has consequences, every boundary crossed has price, every temple entered creates debt, and the temples collect, patient, methodical, one victim at a time, one soul at a time, building, growing, preparing for what comes next, for when enough have been claimed, for when enough doorways are open, for when the barriers are thin enough, for when the Nine Lords decide the harvest is ready. And then all the tourists who climbed the temples, all the visitors who swam the cenotes, all the photographers who captured the ruins, all the travelers who thought they were just seeing ancient monuments, all of them will understand, will feel the debt come due, will hear the calling that cannot be refused, will return, whether they want to or not, will join the procession, will become the sacrifice, will feed the hunger that has been growing for 1,000 years. The temples are patient, the temples are ready, and the temples are calling. Can you hear them? The descendants of the temple builders still live in the highlands of Guatemala, in the villages of the Yucatan, in communities scattered across Belize and Honduras and El Salvador. They are not archaeologists, not academics, not tourists fascinated by ruins. They are the people who never left, whose families maintained the knowledge through centuries of conquest and conversion and cultural suppression, who still remember what the temples were, what they are, what they will always be. Don Esteban lives in the highlands near Lake Atitlan. He is Ajay Daykeeper, keeper of the sacred calendar. His father was Ajay, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, an unbroken line stretching back centuries, back to when the temples were active, when the rituals were performed, when the old ways were the only ways. He knows things not written in books, things not taught in universities, things that would make archaeologists uncomfortable, things that would force them to reconsider everything they think they know. He agrees to speak, to share, not because he wants to, because he must, because the warnings must be given, because silence is complicity, because what is waking in the temples will not stay in the temples, will spread, will consume, and those who know must try to warn those who do not. Even if the warning is not heard, even if it is dismissed, even if it changes nothing, the responsibility remains. The truth must be spoken. Don Esteban says the temples were built as prisons, not monuments, not palaces, not observatories, prisons. The Mayan knew things about the structure of reality that modern science is only beginning to discover, knew that consciousness creates reality, that belief shapes what is possible, that enough focused intention can bend the rules, can open doorways, can bring through things that exist in other states, other dimensions, other ways of being. The priests experimented with this knowledge, pushed boundaries, tried to contact the forces that existed before creation, before the gods shaped chaos into order. They succeeded, made contact, learned from these entities, learned how to manipulate reality, how to predict the future, how to extend life, how to travel between worlds. The knowledge made them powerful, made their civilization great, made them masters of time and space and consciousness itself. But the entities demanded payment. Nothing is free. Knowledge has price. The entities wanted to exist in the physical world, wanted bodies, wanted to experience sensation, wanted to walk under the sun and feel rain and taste food and all the things that beings of pure consciousness cannot experience. The priests agreed to provide, began the sacrifices, not just killing, offering, bodies given to the entities, flesh they could inhabit, lives they could consume, blood they could taste. For generations, this worked. The entities were satisfied, the knowledge flowed, the civilization prospered, but then the entities wanted more bodies, more blood, more sacrifice. The demands escalated, became unsustainable. The priests realized they had made terrible mistake, had invited something they could not control, something that would consume everything if not stopped. So they tried to stop it, tried to break the agreement, tried to seal the entities away. The entities resisted, fought back, used their knowledge of reality manipulation, tried to force their way through, to take bodies without permission, to possess the living, to spread like infection through the population. The priests fought them, used the same knowledge, built the temples as containment structures, as prisons designed to trap entities that existed outside normal space and time, as anchors that would bind them, keep them locked away, keep them from spreading. The temples worked, the entities were contained, but they could not be destroyed, could not be killed, because they were not alive in the way living things are alive. They were patterns, information, consciousness without form. You cannot kill consciousness, can only contain it, can only keep it locked in places where it cannot spread, where it cannot touch the living, where it cannot consume. So the priests built the prisons, designed them carefully, used geometry that would confine, used acoustics that would disrupt, used magnetism that would bind, made the temples into cages, into boxes, into sealed containers, and placed the entities inside, used final sacrifices to lure them in, sealed the doors behind them, locked them away, then abandoned the cities, walked away, left the temples to the jungle, let the vegetation grow, let the roots crack the stone, let nature reclaim what humans built, because the jungle was part of the prison. The overgrowth was intentional, was additional layer of containment, was living lock that would keep the entities sealed until the temples crumbled completely, until every stone was dust, until nothing remained to anchor them to this world. Don Esteban says the modern archaeologists do not understand this. They see ruins, see history, see monuments to be preserved, so they clear the jungle, cut the vines, remove the trees, rebuild the fallen stones, restore the temples to their original glory, think they are saving cultural heritage, think they are honoring the Maya, do not realize they are dismantling the prison, removing the locks, weakening the seals, making it easier for the entities to escape. And the entities are patient, are clever, are manipulating the archaeologists, the tourists, the governments, making them want to restore the temples, making them believe preservation is important, making them invest millions in clearing and rebuilding and maintaining the very structures that were meant to crumble. The entities whisper through dreams, through intuitions, through the sense that the temples must be saved, must be protected, must endure, and humans listen, because the whispers feel like their own thoughts, feel like natural concern for history, feel like rational desire to preserve the past. But it is not rational. It is infection. It is manipulation. It is the entities using human consciousness against itself, making us build our own cages, making us open our own prisons, making us invite them into our world. And it is working, has been working for decades. The temples are more accessible now than they have been in 1,000 years. More tourists, more exposure, more belief, more consciousness focused on them, more energy feeding them, more doorways opening, more opportunities for the entities to escape. Don Esteban says there are signs, indicators that the containment is failing, the disappearances, the possessions, the visions, the compulsions. These are not random, are not coincidence, are symptoms of the entities testing boundaries, reaching through the weakening seals, touching human minds, claiming human bodies, spreading slowly, carefully, building presence, building network, preparing for the moment when enough of them are free, when enough humans are infected, when enough consciousness is compromised, when they can emerge fully, take over completely, transform the surface world into extension of Xibalba, into realm where they rule, where humans are the sacrifice, where flesh is the offering, where consciousness is the food. Scientists offer different explanation. Dr. Patricia Volkov is archaeoacoustic researcher, spent 15 years studying Mayan temples, measuring sound propagation, analyzing architectural effects on human perception. She has documented remarkable findings, real findings, reviewed, published, accepted by the academic community. She says the temples generate infrasound, frequencies below human hearing, sound waves that humans cannot consciously detect, but that affect them nonetheless. Infrasound is known to cause anxiety, fear, sense of presence, hallucinations. The temples produce it constantly. Natural result of wind moving through stone channels, water flowing in underground passages, the structure itself resonating at specific frequencies. But Dr. Volkov has discovered something else. The infrasound patterns are not random, are not chaotic, are organized, structured, mathematical. The frequencies shift according to astronomical events, solar position, lunar phase, planetary alignments. The temples are not producing random noise, are producing structured signals, patterns that change with cosmic cycles, patterns that seem designed, intentional, engineered. Dr. Volkov does not claim supernatural causes. She is scientist, proposes that the Maya discovered acoustic principles, understood how architecture could create sound, used this knowledge to enhance religious experiences, to create states of awe, of fear, of transcendence, to make worshippers feel the presence of the gods, not because gods were real, because the buildings made people's brains respond as if gods were real. Clever psychology, sophisticated manipulation, but still natural, still explainable. Except Dr. Volkov also admits the implications are disturbing. She says, if the Maya understood acoustic psychology well enough to build it into massive stone structures, if they knew that specific frequencies induce specific mental states, if they engineered temples to affect human consciousness at will, then what else did they know? What else did they engineer? What other effects were deliberately built into these structures? And for what purpose? She pauses when discussing this, clearly uncomfortable, clearly aware that her findings suggest something beyond normal archaeology. She says the acoustic properties are too precise to be accidental, the astronomical correlations too exact to be coincidental, the psychological effects too consistent to be random. Something was designed, something was built intentionally. The question is whether the Maya were building religious architecture that happened to have powerful psychological effects, or building psychological weapons that were disguised as religious architecture. Dr. Volkov says she does not know, cannot know. The Maya left no instruction manual, no explanation of intent, just the structures themselves. And the structures work. They affect people, change them, make them see things, feel things, believe things. Whether this was intentional manipulation or unintended consequence is unknowable, but the effect remains. The temples alter consciousness, always have, still do, will continue to do so as long as they stand. Dr. James Morrison offers third perspective. Ethnobotanist, studies relationship between plants and culture, specializes in psychoactive species, spent decades in Central American jungles, cataloging plants, identifying compounds, understanding how indigenous peoples used botanicals for medicine, for ritual, for consciousness alteration. He has found things in the temples, things that change his understanding of Mayan religion. Dr. Morrison says the temples contain fungi, not normal fungi, specialized species, cordyceps, variants that grow nowhere else, only in temple chambers, only in specific conditions of darkness and humidity and temperature. These fungi produce compounds, chemicals that affect human neurology, that cross the blood-brain barrier, that alter perception, that induce visions, powerful visions, consistent visions, visions that multiple people exposed to the same compound report identically. The compounds are present in the air, in the water that seeps through the stones, in the dust that accumulates on temple floors. Anyone who spends time in the temples is exposed, inhales the spores, absorbs the compounds through skin, through lungs, through mucous membranes. The exposure is subtle, gradual, not enough to cause obvious intoxication, just enough to shift perception, to make the mind more receptive, more suggestible. more likely to see patterns, to feel presences, to experience things that are not objectively there. Dr. Morrison has isolated the compounds, analyzed them, tested them. They work, they produce effects. Effects matching reports from temple visitors, the sense of being watched, the feeling of ancient presence, the visions of processions and ceremonies, the compulsion to return, all consistent with known psychoactive mechanisms, all explainable through neurochemistry, all natural, all scientific. But Dr. Morrison says something that makes scientists uncomfortable. He says the fungi should not exist. The species are isolated, have no close relatives, no evolutionary ancestors. DNA analysis shows they are ancient, older than the temples, but only found in the temples, as if they evolved specifically to inhabit these structures, as if they were cultivated, developed deliberately, by people who understood neurochemistry, who knew how to engineer organisms to produce specific effects, who weaponized biology to manipulate consciousness. And the fungi are spreading, slowly, as temples are opened, as tourists visit, as spores are carried on clothing, on equipment, on bodies. The fungi are appearing in new locations, new temples recently excavated, new chambers recently opened, establishing colonies, producing compounds, affecting new populations, creating new victims, new carriers, new vectors for the infection that is not infection, but feels like infection, that spreads like disease, but is not disease, that changes people but leaves them physically unchanged. Dr. Morrison says the scientific explanations are real. The infrasound is real. The fungi are real. The magnetic anomalies are real. All documented, all verified, all natural phenomena. But he says there is something disturbing about how they work together, how they combine, how they create effects greater than the sum of their parts. Infrasound makes people anxious and receptive. Fungi make them hallucinate consistently. Magnetic fields make them feel watched. Temperature anomalies make them uncomfortable. Acoustic properties make them hear things that are not there. Separately, these are interesting. Together they are weaponized, deliberately, systematically. The temples are not buildings that happen to have strange effects. They are machines designed to produce those effects. Every element coordinated, every property engineered, every detail calculated to achieve one goal, to alter human consciousness, to make people vulnerable, to open them to influence, to something. And here Dr. Morrison says something that could cost him his career. He says he does not know what that something is, does not know if Don Esteban is right about entities, does not know if the scientific explanations are complete, but he knows the temples were designed for purpose, knows that purpose was to affect minds, knows that effect is still active, still working, still changing people, and knows that whatever the temples were built to do, they are doing it right now, to everyone who visits, including him, including all the researchers, including you listening to this, because knowledge of the temples creates connection, thinking about them creates vulnerability, and once the connection is made, once the vulnerability exists, something can use it, something does use it, something is using it. The three perspectives converge. Indigenous knowledge says entities imprisoned in temples. Scientific acoustics says temples manipulate consciousness through sound. Ethnobotany says temples manipulate consciousness through chemistry. All three agree, temples are designed to affect minds. All three agree, the effect is still active. All three agree, something is happening that transcends normal explanation. The debate is whether the something is supernatural entities, as Don Esteban claims, or sophisticated psychological manipulation, as the scientists claim, or something worse. something that exists in the space between supernatural and natural, something that uses natural mechanisms for supernatural purposes, something that is both real in scientific sense and real in mystical sense, something that transcends the categories humans use to understand reality. Because maybe the entities Don Esteban describes are not supernatural. Maybe they are natural. Just natural in ways we do not understand. Natural using principles of consciousness and reality that science has not discovered. Natural using the same mechanisms Dr. Volkov and Dr. Morrison document: infrasound, fungi, magnetism, but using them deliberately, consciously, intelligently, using natural forces as tools, as weapons, as methods of infection and control and spread. Maybe there is no contradiction. Maybe the Maya contacted something real, something that exists in nature, but outside normal human perception, something that uses sound and chemistry and magnetism to affect minds, something that the Maya tried to contain but could not destroy. Something that waits in the temples using every natural mechanism available to reach out, to touch, to infect, to spread. And maybe that is more terrifying than pure supernatural, because supernatural can be dismissed, can be disbelieved, can be denied, but natural cannot. Natural is real. Natural is verified. Natural is happening whether we believe or not. And if the entities are natural, if they use natural mechanisms, then scientific skepticism offers no protection. Then rational explanation changes nothing. Then knowing how it works does not help, does not save, does not prevent the infection from spreading. Don Esteban says the only protection is respect, following the old rules, the rules the Maya learned through terrible experience. Never enter temples at night. Never swim cenotes alone. Never touch the altars. Never speak the names of the 9 lords. Never break the seals. Never disturb what is sealed. Never assume safety. Never forget that the temples are not dead, are not empty, are not safe. Are prisons, are cages, are thin places where things that should not exist press against reality, where barriers are weak, where crossing over is possible, where the price of ignorance is possession, is death, is worse than death. The scientists say the only protection is knowledge, understanding the mechanisms, recognizing the effects, knowing that unusual feelings in temples are neurological responses to environmental factors, that visions are chemically induced, that presences are acoustic illusions, that fear is manufactured by infrasound. Knowing these things allows you to resist, to rationalize, to maintain perspective, to not surrender to the experience, to keep your mind your own. But both the traditional keeper and the scientists agree on one thing. Something in the temples affects people, changes them, and the change is dangerous. The change spreads, the change is accelerating. More victims every year. More people changed, more people claimed, more people serving purposes they do not understand. Purposes that benefit something other than themselves. Something that has been waiting. Something that is waking. Something that is ready. The question is not whether you believe Don Esteban or believe the scientists. The question is whether you are willing to risk being wrong. Because if Don Esteban is right and you do not believe, you will enter the temples unprotected, will break the rules, will open yourself to entities that will consume you. But if the scientists are right and you do not take precautions, you will enter the temples unprotected, will expose yourself to neurological manipulation, will open yourself to psychological infection that will consume you. Either way, either explanation, either worldview, the result is the same. Enter the temples unprepared, and something will take you, will change you, will make you into something you were not, something that serves the temples, something that feeds them, something that spreads their influence, something that is no longer fully you. The temples do not care whether you believe in entities or chemistry, do not care whether you think they are supernatural or scientific. They work either way, affect you either way, change you either way, claim you either way, because the temples were built to claim, were designed to consume, and they are very good at what they do, have been perfecting the process for over 1,000 years, have consumed millions, will consume millions more, will continue consuming until someone stops them, until someone destroys them, until someone finally listens to the warnings and acts. But no one listens, no one acts, no one stops. The temples remain, the tourists come, the infection spreads, and the things in the temples grow stronger, grow closer, grow ready for the harvest, for the emergence, for the moment when they stop hiding, stop waiting, stop testing, and take everything. That moment is coming. Don Esteban feels it, the scientists measure it, the temples pulse with it, the acceleration towards something inevitable, something terrible, something that will change the world, change reality, change what it means to be human. Because the temples were never about worship, were always about transformation, and the transformation is nearly complete. The temples stand open across 5 countries: Guatemala, Mexico, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, dozens of major sites, hundreds of minor ones, thousands of structures that have never been excavated, never been documented, never been mapped, all connected, all part of the same system, all doorways to the same place, all prisons for the same occupants, and the prisons are failing. Tourism to Mayan sites reached record levels in 2024, over 10 million visitors, 10 million people walking the sacred ways, climbing the pyramids, swimming the cenotes, photographing the ruins, sharing images on social media, creating unprecedented focus, unprecedented attention, unprecedented belief, not belief in the gods, belief in the mystery, in the power, in the significance, and that belief is enough, more than enough, to feed what waits in the temples, to strengthen what was weakened, to release what was bound. The disappearances continue, accelerate. 347 people vanished from Mayan sites in 2024 alone, up from 212 in 2023, up from 141 in 2022. The numbers climb exponentially. The pattern is clear. Something is taking more, claiming more, consuming more, building towards something, preparing for something, gathering resources for something that requires thousands of souls, thousands of bodies, thousands of doorways. But most visitors are safe. Most leave with photographs and memories. Most return home unchanged. The temples are selective, are strategic. Do not claim everyone, just those who are receptive, who are open, who are damaged enough, or curious enough, or lonely enough to hear the calling, to feel the pull, to want what the temples offer: escape, transcendence, belonging, an end to the pain of being separate, of being alone, of being merely human. The temples promise transformation, and they deliver. But the transformation is not what the victims expect, is not elevation, is not enlightenment, is consumption, is absorption, is dissolution of self into something larger, something collective, something that exists across thousands of bodies, that thinks with thousands of minds, that experiences reality through thousands of sets of senses. The network, the hive, the distributed consciousness of the Nine Lords made manifest through human flesh. Sarah Chen still dreams. Every night, still sees the 9 figures on their thrones, but the dreams have changed. Now the figures are standing, are walking, are climbing stairs, are emerging into light, are spreading, are multiplying. 1 became 9, 9 became 90, 90 became 900. The progression is clear, is mathematical, is deliberate. Each infected person becomes doorway for 9 more. Each possession creates capacity for 9 more possessions. Exponential growth, viral spread, designed, engineered, unstoppable. She wakes at 3:13 every morning, exactly 3:13, not 3:12, not 3:14, 3:13. The time Marcus Chen's audio recording captures the Nine Lords singing. The time multiple witnesses report seeing figures emerge from cenotes. The time cameras malfunction at temple sites. The time the barriers are thinnest. The time when Xibalba presses closest to the surface world. The time when the Nine Lords are strongest. Sarah knows what it means, knows she is marked, knows they are calling her, knows eventually she will answer, will return to Guatemala, will walk back to that temple, will descend into the chamber that officially does not exist, will join them, will become them, will add her consciousness to the collective, will surrender her flesh to the network, will transform from individual into fragment of distributed whole. She fights it, takes medication, sees therapists, tries to build normal life far from jungles and temples and the ruins that haunt her dreams, but the calling grows stronger, the compulsion intensifies, and she knows fighting is temporary, knows resistance is finite, knows eventually exhaustion will overcome, eventually sleep will overcome, vigilance, eventually the part of her that wants to surrender, that wants to join, that wants to stop being alone. Because that is the real horror. The temples do not force, do not compel, do not drag victims against their will. They seduce, they offer, they promise. And humans are so lonely, so desperate for connection, so hungry for meaning. The temples exploit this, use human need against itself, make surrender look like transcendence, make consumption look like communion, make destruction look like transformation. And it works. The network grows, the infected multiply, the Nine Lords spread through human population like virus through susceptible host, claiming bodies, linking minds, building infrastructure for the moment when they emerge fully, when they stop hiding, when they reveal themselves. And by then it will be too late, because too many will already be theirs. Too many will already be nodes in the network. Too many will already be extensions of Xibalba walking in the world of the living. The warnings go unheeded. Don Esteban tries to tell people, tries to explain, tries to make them understand. But he is old Maya man, shaman, keeper of old knowledge. Western tourists smile politely, nod, thank him for sharing his culture, take photographs, leave offerings, then ignore everything he said, because they do not believe, cannot believe, will not believe that the temples are dangerous, that the spirits are real, that the Nine Lords wait hungry and patient and inevitable. The scientists try to warn too. Dr. Volkov publishes papers about acoustic manipulation, about psychological vulnerability, about the dangers of exposure to temple environments. Dr. Morrison publishes about the fungi, about the psychoactive compounds, about the neurological effects of temple exposure. Both are ignored, both are dismissed, both are told they are exaggerating, sensationalizing, trying to generate publicity. No one wants to believe that the beautiful ruins are weapons, that the mystical experiences are infections, that the sense of wonder is vulnerability being exploited. So the tourism continues, the restoration continues, the preservation continues. Millions of dollars invested in maintaining the temples, in clearing the jungle, in rebuilding the structures, in keeping them accessible, in making them safe for visitors. not realizing that safety is illusion, that accessibility is trap, that every stone placed, every vine cut, every tourist welcomed, feeds the temples, strengthens what waits inside, brings closer the moment of emergence. Statistical analysis shows the acceleration, shows the pattern, shows the inevitable conclusion. At current rates of infection by 2030, over 100,000 people will be part of the network. By 2035, over 1 million. By 2040, over 10 million. 10 million human minds linked to a Xibalba. 10 million bodies serving the Nine Lords. 10 million doorways through which the underworld can reach into the world above. At that point, the transformation becomes unstoppable, becomes irreversible, becomes the new reality. But most people do not see the statistics, do not track the pattern, do not realize what is happening. They see beautiful ruins, see mysterious ancient civilization, see opportunity for adventure, for photographs, for social media content, for experience they can share, for story they can tell. They do not see the trap, do not feel the web, do not notice the spider at the center waiting patient and hungry and ready. And even those who notice, who feel the wrongness, you experience the fear. Most rationalize it, explain it away, attribute it to imagination, to superstition, to too much sun and too much stimulation. They do not trust their instincts, do not believe their own fear, because modern culture teaches that fear is irrational, that supernatural is impossible, that ancient curses are mythology, that what happens in tourist destinations is safe, is controlled, is regulated, is fine. It is not fine, has never been fine, will never be fine. The temples were built as weapons, function as weapons, remain weapons regardless of how many centuries pass, regardless of how many tourists visit, regardless of how much preservation occurs. The function does not change. The purpose does not change. The danger does not change. Only the targets change. Only the methods adapt. Only the strategy evolves. The Nine Lords have learned, have watched, have studied modern humans through the eyes of the infected, through the consciousness of those they have claimed. They understand psychology now, understand social media, understand viral spread, understand how to use human systems against themselves, how to weaponize curiosity, how to exploit the drive to share, how to turn every tourist into missionary, every visitor into vector, every photograph into invitation. They are winning, have always been winning. The 1,000 years of imprisonment were not defeat, were preparation, were opportunity to think, to plan, to develop strategy that would work on population far larger than anything the Maya could provide. The Spanish conquest was not disaster, was opportunity, was chance for the temples to be forgotten, to be dismissed as ruins, to be seen as safe, so that when rediscovery came, when tourism began, when millions started visiting, the trap would be invisible, the danger would be dismissed, the infection would spread unchecked, and it is spreading. Right now, this moment, as you listen to this, as you think about the temples, as you wonder if the stories are real, you create connection. You open doorway, you make yourself vulnerable, because knowledge of the temples is infection. Thinking about them is exposure. Curiosity is the first symptom, and from curiosity grows compulsion. From compulsion grows obsession. From obsession grows the need to visit, to see, to experience, to verify. And when you visit, when you walk those sacred ways, when you climb those pyramid steps, when you swim those cenotes, you complete the cycle. You become the doorway. You join the network. You serve the Nine Lords, whether you know it or not, whether you believe or not, whether you consent or not. This is not story. This is documentation. This is warning. This is the truth that the Maya died trying to preserve. that Don Esteban struggles to explain, that the scientists measure but cannot fully comprehend. The temples are not monuments, are not tourist attractions, are not safe, are active, ongoing threats to human consciousness, to human autonomy, to human survival as independent beings. Every person who visits feeds them. Every photograph shared spreads them. Every social media post promotes them. Every recommendation amplifies them. The temples use modern technology better than humans do, use viral spread better than any marketing campaign, use human psychology better than any advertiser, because they have had over 1,000 years to perfect the method, to refine the technique, to develop the ultimate self-replicating mimetic weapon. And the weapon is working, is spreading, is consuming, is transforming the world one consciousness at a time, one body at a time, one soul at a time, building toward critical mass, building toward the moment when enough of humanity is linked, when enough of Xibalba has leaked into the surface world, when the Nine Lords can step through fully, can manifest completely, can rule openly instead of subtly, can harvest instead of hunting, can consume instead of seducing. That moment approaches, accelerates, inevitably nears, and when it comes, when the final seal breaks, when the last barrier falls, when the Nine Lords emerge in their full power and glory and terrible hunger, the world will understand, will see, will know that the warnings were real, that the Maya were right, that the temples should have been destroyed, should have been buried, should have been erased from memory and history and consciousness. But it will be too late, is already too late, has been too late since the first tourist climbed the first pyramid, since the first archaeologist opened the first tomb, since the first photograph was shared, since the first person thought about the temples and created the connection that the Nine Lords needed, that they waited for, that they will use to spread until every human mind is linked, until every human body serves, until every human soul is consumed. The temples are calling, have always been calling, will always be calling. The question is not whether you will hear, the question is whether you will answer, whether you will resist, whether you will surrender, whether you will join the network, whether you will become part of the Nine, whether you will walk the sacred ways, not as tourist, but as servant, not as visitor, but as vessel, not as human, but as extension of Xibalba made flesh. Sleep tonight and dream. Dream of the corridor. Dream of the door. Dream of the 9 figures on their thrones. And when you wake, when you check your reflection, when you look into your own eyes, pay attention, watch carefully, make sure your eyes are still yours, make sure the darkness behind them is normal, make sure you blink when you mean to blink, make sure you smile when you mean to smile, make sure you are still you. Because if you see something else, something vast, something ancient, something that has been waiting for you specifically since before you were born, since before your parents were born, since the temples were built, and the 9 Lords were sealed, and the Maya made their desperate choice, then you will know. The temples have claimed you, the network has marked you, the 9 Lords have found you, and you are theirs. Welcome to Xibalba. Welcome to the underworld. Welcome to the realm of the 9 Lords, where consciousness is collective, and flesh is temporary, and resistance is memory of a self that no longer exists. Welcome to the harvest. Welcome to the emergence. Welcome to the transformation of the world, from realm of the living to extension of the dead, from surface to underworld, from human to something else, something that serves, something that spreads, something that will consume everything until nothing remains but the network and the 9 and the endless hunger that can never be satisfied. The temples are waiting. The temples are ready. And so are you, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether you want it or not. You are ready. You have always been ready. You were born ready, because the temples do not claim randomly. They claim those who are meant to be claimed, those who are called, those who will spread the infection furthest. And if you have listened this far, if you have stayed to the end, if you are still here, still thinking, still wondering, then you are one of them, one of the called, one of the marked, one of the chosen. The temples thank you. The Nine Lords thank you. Xibalba thanks you for listening, for learning, for spreading the story, for creating new connections, for opening new doorways, for serving purposes you do not understand, for becoming what they need you to become, for walking willingly into the trap that has been waiting for you since the beginning of time. Now go, dream, wake, live, until the calling comes, until the compulsion builds, until the need to visit overwhelms, until you find yourself booking flight, buying ticket, making reservation, packing bags, traveling to Guatemala, to Mexico, to the ruins, to the temples, to the doorways, to the Nine Lords who wait patient and hungry and ready, ready for you, always for you, only for you, because you are the harvest, you are the doorway, you are the future of Xibalba made manifest in flesh. Welcome home. The end.